Hey there folks, I'm Mark in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
Well, here we go folks, down to the last couple weeks of tracking the Billboard year, either this week or next week. I've yet to get clear info, and yet I don't really have a finale vibe out of 2019. That's the frustrating thing when you try to cram a messy chart show into any sort of narrative, especially on a week that seemed relatively predictable, but okay, here we are. Unfortunately, the big prediction that I made for the top 10 didn't quite come true, so let's start with Someone You Love by Lewis Capaldi continuing to squat at number 1 like a lingering fart, only with a slight boost of streaming making up for how it's losing in all other categories. I have to believe that Post Malone's Circle can make the run beyond number 2, and yet while it has slightly better streaming and sales, it just hasn't narrowed that airplay gap just enough just yet. More's the pity. Then we got Señorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello at number 3, which is plummeting across the board and will likely be surpassed by Good As Hell by Lizzo up to number 4, thanks to strong sales and radio, although those streaming numbers are really questionable. Unfortunately, that can also account for a stronger boost for Memories by Maroon 5 up to number 5, which is even better sales and real radio growth. We're not getting rid of this anytime soon, folks, just warning you. Hell, blew right past Truth Hurts by Lizzo at number 6, as that's bleeding in all categories, but that still holds at least above No Guidance by Chris Brown featuring Drake at number 7, most because it's losing on the radio and streaming. Now, I'd say this would be good news for Lose You to Love Me by Selena Gomez, except that song fell back to number 8 because despite radio gains, sales and streaming are down considerably. And yet that wasn't enough for Panini by Lil Nas X to make any gains either, as it fell down to number 9 because stable radio and streaming isn't enough to get any higher. Finally, we've got 10,000 Hours by Dan and Shay and Justin Bieber holding at number 10, as radio growth unfortunately just isn't enough on its own to compensate for weakening sales and streaming. But this takes us to our losers and dropouts, where we kinda got a mix between the expected and some faint surprises. Yeah, I kind of expected that Love You Too Late by Cole Swindell was gonna fall out, along with FN by Lil TJ that had a rough couple of weeks, but You Need to Calm Down by Taylor Swift and Cash It by Megan Thee Stallion and DaBaby exiting. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot both of them were still charting, especially as the former easily clinched her year-end spot, and Megan will be on the cusp of getting there. Now, granted, she didn't really have a great week, as Hot Girl Summer with Nicki Minaj and Ty Dolla $ign fell sharply down to 59, but the bigger loser this week was Young Boy Never Broke Again, with Make No Sense sliding down to 69, Lonely Child down to 73, and Self-Control down at 86. Then there are the other gains that just kind of evaporated, like Hate Me by Ellie Goulding and Juice WRLD at 68, Hot Shower by Chance the Rapper featuring Made in TYO and DaBaby at 85, and What Happens in a Small Town by Brantley Gilbert and Lindsay L plummeting down to 93. And then we have the debuts that took the expected hit. Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa stumbled a bit at 46, It All Comes Out in the Wash by Miranda Lambert went down to 82, again I don't expect this to last, and Immortal by 21 Savage hit hard at 100. Beyond that, Start With Me by Roddy Ricch and Gunna at 98, but I'm not complaining about that falling off either. But alright, what about our returning entries and gains? All likely to be swept aside in the coming weeks by the avalanche of Christmas music, but hey, let's talk about them regardless. Oh shit, some of that's already started with All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey back at number 39, but forgive me if I'm not going to be too sad that La Canción by J Balvin and Bad Bunny won't last as it's back at 84, or that La 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 by Y2K and Baby No Money has its last gasp at 94. I'm a little bit more interested in what will happen with Kelsea Ballerini and Homecoming Queen at 89 though, but that'll depend on just how much Christmas music will cannibalize country radio, as that typically happens. But make no mistake, country and country adjacent music had a banner week this week, with the biggest story being the huge album-driven boost for Luke Combs pushing Even Though I'm Leaving all the way up to 11, which if this momentum continues, I'm not even gonna care if it misses the year-end list for 2019, so long as it makes the next year. It could well do so. But the gains, they were pretty consistent, pushing Remember You Young by Thomas Rhett up again to 53, What If I Never Get Over You by Lady Antebellum up to 54 in preparation for that album, and frustratingly, Riding Roads by Dustin Lynch up to 76 off the debut. But off that return, we also saw Juicy by Doja Cat and Tyga get a boost up to 47, and Stuck in a Dream by Lil Mosey and Gunna at 62. But that's not really what drew my attention, nor did the remix for Lover by Taylor Swift with Shawn Mendes that got pushed up to 26. Now, what caught my eye was Nice to Meet Ya by Niall Horan getting a boost up to 63. I honestly expected this to fizzle out, but it's got sales and radio traction, so I don't know, I guess we'll see how far it goes. Anyway, we got a pretty healthy, if mostly frustrating list of new arrivals, starting off with number 92, Valentino by 24K Golden. Another day, another trap song catching a snippet of virality thanks to TikTok, and if this isn't Vine 2.0, I don't know what the hell is. Anyway, this is a song that was actually first released in February earlier this year, kind of makes sense with the title, and yeah, kind of get why it's been a while for this to chart, because 24K Golden is not remotely impressing me here. You'd think for a luxury rap against restrained flutes and keys and a pretty underweight trap beat, he would try to sound more relaxed, but instead he's shouting with the weedy, cracking delivery of somebody who is utterly missing the point. For that sort of intensity, you need to be able to sell it. Anyway, it's a song about him wanting luxury brands and getting head, and while the hook is indeed pretty catchy, I'm a little bit more distracted by him trying to force the rhyme of chess and face. But beyond that, I guess the hook is catchy enough to expose exactly why it's popular in the Lil Tecca ransom sort of mold, but it feels equally as disposable. Next, number 90, Show Me Love by Alicia Keys featuring Miguel.
Show me love, I eat up the seconds, times, and reasons for your love.
So it's probably not a good sign. The first buzz I heard about this collaboration is that it was generally underwhelming from both acts. A chance for both to hop back towards the mainstream that might have left them behind. Which seemed simultaneously a little unfair, but also possibly valid. So while I was a little worried checking this out, I can confirm that Show Me Love only feels like a play for the mainstream in its abortive structure. A single verse, a bridge, couple hooks. Otherwise, it sounds like more like a Torch song, stripping things down to a few layers of guitar and bass and low-key vocal interplay between the two singers, and they've got a lot of charisma, and yet weirdly little chemistry. Yep, that's the odd thing about the two of them here, as they're both naturally organic and really potent singers, but the smokier smolder just does not really come through. Maybe if the hook had a little more organic warmth, or if the larger mix didn't feel so saturated in reverb, or maybe if they had kept the unnecessary vocal touch-ups off the bridge. I don't know, it's odd. You'd think this would be a slam dunk for me, but it feels weirdly flat. It's not a bad effort, but I don't know, folks. This should be a lot better. Number 83, Jerry Sprunger by Tory Lanez and T-Pain. So I'm not sure if this is a commonly held opinion among fans of mid-2000s R&B, but I'm gonna say it. T-Pain's I'm Sprung sucks. The production is painfully undercooked even for that era. T-Pain's heavy embrace of autotune hadn't quite been fine-tuned as it would be in the next couple of years, and the less his squawking lyrics are analyzed, the better. He hadn't quite leaned into the silliness that had always been emblematic of his best material, and his humble beginnings nowadays, they sound pretty embarrassing. So why in the nine hells Tory Lanez thought it'd be a good idea to sample that previous song for his remake off of Chicks Tape 5, it utterly blows my mind, but here we are. And yes, just from the benefit of more developed percussion and T-Pain sounding more comfortable in his lane, this is better, but only barely. Why is there more bass and actual melody behind them outside of the cooing backing vocals? And why does the clapping snare have no real body? It does get distracting, but what's a lot more alarming is how weedy and underwhelming Tory Lanez sounds behind the mic compared to T-Pain. Not a good sign when T-Pain includes a beatboxing passage mid-verse and then tells his girl who doesn't like the champagne to throw it up. Sexy there. And again, just like the original, it's a song that's built around the metaphor for horniness as being sprung, which puts me more in the mind of a Looney Tunes cartoon than anything all that sexual. So yeah, sorry folks, this is still really bad. And if we're still bound to see more of Chicks Tape 5 next week, I sure as hell am not looking forward to it. So next, number 81, Yellow Hearts by Aunt Saunders.
Her favorite color like the stars.
And we got another act blowing up off of TikTok here, although not one in a form I would have expected. For one, Aunt Saunders is described as an indie pop singer-songwriter, has been sliding out projects below the radar for a little bit, and only seemed to catch a flicker of attention now. And as much as I hope that maybe this guy could be the next Bozzy, this is one of those cases where the blatantly cheap pickups, the lack of decent blending, and the homegrown sound is a lot less impressive. Part of this is the weird vibe of the song, where apparently it's about him getting strung along by a girl who seemed to imply more interest than there actually was. And I do get the weirdly dejected mood of the song, hell, we've all been there, but the lackluster writing and the delivery just fall utterly flat for me, coming across as more pitiable than actively attracting a lot of sympathy from me. Maybe it's an age gap thing and this will resonate more with a younger audience, but you factor in a couple sloppy rhymes and I'm reminded just why Loathe didn't really vibe for some similar reasons. Tonally, it just doesn't click. Not terrible, I can see this getting big, but I don't know. Not for me. Number 78, Tusa by Karol G and Nicki Minaj. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that Nicki Minaj would hop on a reggaeton beat. There were enough tropical flourishes on Queen to make it obvious, but I was optimistic on how well it would land, given how much the groove has traditionally flattered her delivery, and to my pleasant surprise, I actually think this is pretty decent. Karol G takes the approach of going out with her girls to get over an ex, but when a certain song comes on, she's stuck thinking about that partner and inevitably goes back. And you know what, her and Nicki Minaj, they got some decent interplay, some real chemistry, at least until Nicki launches into her braggadocio side where she's telling off some ex, and it doesn't match with any of the established story. Kind of a shame because the strings added some decent sharp elegance to the otherwise standard percussion line, and the subtle melodic interplay off the piano was actually pretty solid. If anything, it feels like one of those cases where they had a really good idea for a song, and Nicki seemed game for it for a little bit, until she defaulted to her most common mold, which just feels jarringly out of place, especially when Karol G returns for that third verse. I don't know, it's kind of a shame because otherwise, nah, I don't mind this. Not half bad. Should be better. Number 74, Everything I Wanted by Billie Eilish.
No one can hurt you.
So I'll admit, I'm not that surprised we're getting a new Billie Eilish song. There's been an extended single rollout for her debut album, a promotional strategy that worked in gangbusters at the end, really exponential growth. So the next question would be what the hell she'd bring out next, especially as All the Good Girls Go to Hell hasn't really taken off as strongly as other singles. And with this, look, you know what, I really do like it, but I'm not quite as wowed by it in the same way I've loved her best songs. And it's a little tough to pin down exactly why, but I will say at least some of it has to do with the sound that's a little less experimental and eerie, instead of relying on a spare clapping patter and muted piano line that does build a little bit of bassy swell on the hook, but feels a little too restrained for its own good. Now, granted, it's not surprising when you consider the content. That kind of fits, where Billie Eilish dreams of achieving everything she ever wants, and then committing suicide to discover that nobody really cared all that much, with only the reassurance from her brother that that would never really happen. People would care, but her misgivings still remain as success is even more close in reach. It's a really bleak, lonely little song that I might respect more than I outright like it, and I do think it is good, but I will say she's done better before. Still, though, it's trying harder than a lot of what's breaking on the charts, so I don't know. It's pretty good. Check it out. Number 72, Better Together by Luke Combs.
And probably always will.
You know, when I reviewed Luke Combs' album last week, I actually did get a little bit of backlash that didn't really speak on this song, considering how it could be considered a little pushy for an intimate closing love song. And while I would agree it's not really one of the top tier songs in the project, a little too reliant on checklist songwriting, and that doesn't really match the very spare accompaniment where you'd think there'd be more intimacy and focus on her explicitly. But I actually didn't mind the moment of how he'd want to marry her on the bridge, mostly because of the framing. It's a little bit more wistful or even kind of wishful thinking from Luke Combs. And while it might feel a little presumptuous, it's just hesitant enough to feel genuinely sincere. And I actually think it kind of works. In other words, yeah, it's a pretty good song. A little low-key for an album closer, and I'm surprised it's getting pushed as any sort of single, but I'm okay with this being here. So yeah, check it out. Number 56, Hard on Ice by Rod Wave.
while in the cell with Lil Joaquin.
Okay, so this is a debut trap act that I think deserves a little bit more of an explanation, especially as some buzz has suggested this guy's come up has been long in coming. So, Rod Wave, Florida rapper, known for his associations with Kevin Gates, who actually produced his debut album that got some critical acclaim earlier this year, and he's built a bit of a base following before breaking out with this mixtape song. And the immediate comparison that comes to mind with me is the most recent Young Boy Never Broke Again that I actually kind of liked, maybe with a smattering of some Polo G in here too. His voice a little bit more husky and emotive over the single verse that we did get, and he seems to carry himself with a little bit more gravitas and maturity in some of his angst, which works over the layered pianos, the warbling guitars, and the more dense trap percussion. And it matches his jail time depression and desire to repress his emotions pretty effectively, especially given that he knows that a lot of his deep-seated anger is rooted in his broken home growing up. And it's real honest about that, especially as he doesn't really see a solution. It's actually surprisingly impactful, and for a song that I still think is entirely too short, you know what, it still works. Very good song. Like it, check it out. And finally, number 19, Woah by Lil Baby.
You ain't gotta worry, don't care about your boyfriend.
You know, at some point the mainstream public's gonna get sick of Lil Baby saying a lot of nothing rather badly, but thanks to TikTok and a reference to a mid-2010s dance craze, this charted as highly as it did. Certainly not because of the mixing, where opposite the pianos, the trap snares sound cheap as all hell against a bass beat that remains as badly blended as ever, and with the flubbed rhymes of loads with trophy, and person with imagine, and roarin' with boyfriend. No, maybe it's just me, but are people really using Lil Baby lines for Instagram captions, or thinking that he's not a by-the-numbers, pretty regular MC? Because I can't recall a single thing he's ever said that's not one-dimensional bragging or remotely special, or even all that colorful. To me, this just comes across like a middling Lil Wayne impression that can't even bother to have punchlines. And really, it will not be worth remembering or caring about beyond maybe this week. Don't expect it to stick around. Just saying. But yeah, this is our week. Honestly, tough to say there's a lot of standouts here on either side, but with the exception of the obvious worst with Jerry Sprunger by Tory Lanez and T-Pain. Dishonourable mention though, I'm gonna give it to Woah by Lil Baby, which only beats out 24K Golden because he's more underwhelming and has a way more undeserved hype. Now for the best, honestly kind of a toss-up between Rod Wave and Billie Eilish, but I think I'm gonna give Hard on Ice by Rod Wave the edge on a slightly brighter melody and punch, with Everything I Wanted as the honorable mention. Still good song though, and I expect it to grow on me. But next week, well, potentially the end of this Billboard year, the start of the next one for 2020. I haven't been able to pin down official validation anywhere. Regardless, looks like this show, given that it's on its own channel, I'm not going to stop it anytime soon, so stay tuned for whatever comes next. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.